Captain Jean-Luc Picard, you lead the strongest ship of the Federation fleet. You speak for your people.
I have nothing to say to you. And I will resist you with my last ounce of strength.
Strength is irrelevant. Resistance is futile. We wish to improve ourselves. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service ours.
Impossible. My culture is based on freedom and self-determination.
Freedom is irrelevant. Self-determination is irrelevant. You must comply.
We would rather die.
Death is irrelevant.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, a Teen G podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
I don't know why you sound so sad.
Because we're at the end of the third season.
Yes. Well, so just to remind everybody, Jeff and I are huge Star Trek nerds. Dory's a Star Trek novice. And we are taking her on our first journey through Star Trek The Next Generation. And going off of what Jeff said, we are discussing the Season 3 finale, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1. Original air date, June 16th, 1990. And we are going to take it to Dory for the recap.
For the record, Dory finished watching this episode about 5 minutes ago, so this is real fresh.
Yeah.
The best of Borg worlds. I need help. Okay. Oh God. This is. There's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot.
This episode's very dense.
Yeah. Yeah. Took me like 2.5 hours to watch it. Okay. All right. So we have arrived at Juret. Whatever. I don't care. The pronunciations for this episode, I don't care. Sorry. They've arrived at Juret 4 in response to a distress signal from one of the Federation's outermost colonies. There's been no communication from the colony in 12 hours. So Data, Worf, Riker, and Geordi go down to the colony called New Providence, and they're like told that they're being sent to the center of town, but then there's like a big ass crater in the ground, and it kind of looks like the entire city has been like scooped up like right out of the earth.
Yeah,
it's like alarming. So then we meet Admiral JP. Admiral. Oh my God, language is failing me. Admiral JP Hansen and Lieutenant Commander Shelby of Starfleet Tactical. So they've arrived at the Enterprise to review the disappearance of the colony. There are no signs of the 900 inhabitants that live there. So like, the fuck? So they suspect it's the Borg. And the way that they say like, oh, they've been expecting the Borg to do something for like a year, which is like okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, they expected them to come after them now that they're aware of them.
Surprise, we're here.
Yeah.
So Shelby's priority has like been to develop some kind of like, she goes, my priority has been to develop any kind of defense strategy. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But they're like designing new weapons, but like not well, I get. Like not well in terms of like not a lot has been actually like made. She said like a lot of stuff has been on the drawing board, and like projections aren't for like stuff to be completed for a while. So they're just kind of like going at this kind of willy-nilly. Ugh. So then like Riker invites Hansen, it's JP. Invites JP to poker night, but he's like, sorry, not interested, but Shelby plays. And then Picard comments on how taken JP is with Shelby. And JP's like, just an old man's fantasies. Why does this show like old men talking about young women? It's really creepy.
I think the intention there is like, oh, he thinks about it sometimes, but he's not like, lusting after.
Yeah, he's not pervin. He says very nice things about her in like a professional capacity, but still, when he says like old man's fantasies, I'm like, ooh, keep it to yourself.
I think it
Yeah.
was kind of meant to be a bit of a joke, but you're right that it doesn't really come off like
It
that.
comes across, yeah, it doesn't come across as a joke. It's just creepy. So he does say that like when Shelby was assigned the Borg stuff, everyone like had an opinion, but she just kind of like was like, meh. She stayed on track and just like ignored people's like shit because like everybody has put their 2 cents or whatever.
Yeah, she cut through the bullshit.
But she like cut through
Yeah.
the bullshit. Yeah. So, oh yeah, then JP's like, I think Shelby would make a hell of a good officer. And Picard's like, I already have a hell of a good first officer. And then we learn that the Melbourne has been offered to Riker. And this is his 3rd time being offered captain.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like, oh, there's so many implications of like that Riker's old. But okay, here's my question. How long has it been since Riker joined the Enterprise?
Like 3 years, but you have to keep in mind that part of Riker's character is that he's been moving up through the ranks real quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the way they describe it make it seems like, oh, he was all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed when he got on the Enterprise, but it's been 3 years, and now they're like, he's an old man with nothing to offer. So yeah, wow, Riker peaked already. So then JP's like, oh, you should encourage Riker to like take the captain role. But like, what? Everybody calm down for 1 second. Like, let's take a breath and talk about this. Stop.
Well, I think it's like, because this isn't the first time Riker's been a first officer. I think he was first officer on the last ship he served on, because like him and Riker have that conversation about how he doesn't let the captain go on away missions. Or
Yeah.
Picard and him do.
Yeah.
So it's less that like Riker's like old or whatever, and it's more about like, hey, you're hurting your career if you don't move on, you know?
Well, let Riker hurt his own career if he wants to hurt his own career.
Yeah, but they don't-
who does it affect other than him?
Well, I mean, Picard said that. We need good captains, especially now.
Well, whose fault is that?
Riker's for not
Ig-
taking the command?
No, that's not Riker's fault. It's not Riker's fault that they need good captains.
It's Q's fault for
Yeah.
introducing
All right,
them
fair.
to the Borg.
Okay, so they learn that the Borg had left some kind of like footprint thing on the hull of that they were able to like detect on the damaged parts of the hull from back in the day. And Shelby wants Geordi and Data on an away team to like go look at the colony remains, I guess. But Riker also wants to go. And then, so in my notes I wrote this bitch because so then Riker's having a conversation with Shelby, and she's like, oh, is being on the Enterprise everything you've ever like, is it like the greatest? Like, I've heard all these great things. And Riker's like, 100%, it's awesome. And then Shelby's like, oh, that's great, because like I totally want to convince Picard that I'm the right person for the job. And Riker's like, what job? And then she's like, yours. And he's like, the fuck? And then she's like, yeah, I heard you were leaving. And he's like, yeah, okay, like if I'm leaving, I'll let you know. And I was like, oh, wow. Shit gets real this episode. So they play poker. So Data, Riker, Geordi, Troy, and Wes, and Shelby, they play poker. Wes is like, not great. But that's okay. Shelby calls out Riker that he was bluffing. And Wes is very dramatic about his loss. He just is like real bummed. But they're showing like Shelby. I think, man, they really just want to be like, hey, Riker, this is Shelby. She's younger than you, and she's going to kick your ass at everything.
Yeah.
Haha, go fuck yourself. Haha. So then when the next morning, Riker and Geordi show up to the transporter room, and they're like, oh, the Shelby and Data are late. And then O'Brien's like, oh, no, they went like an hour ago. So like Riker is like not happy about that because it felt very like behind his back. So yeah, they go down to the planet, and Riker pulls her to the side and is like, hey, what the fuck? And she's like, oh, there's a storm coming, so, like, we thought we'd go down early. And, oh, we have, like, the same footprint, makeup in the soil that was on the ship. It's definitely the Borg. Oh, yeah, so it's to let like, other Federation colonies and shit know. Oh, yeah, so then, like, Picard asks Riker what he thinks about Shelby. And Riker's like, oh, yeah, she takes initiative too easily and takes a lot of risks. And Picard's like, that sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I don't really remember Riker taking a billion risks, but, like, what do I know?
He definitely had, like, a lot more, like, gusto when he first arrived.
Yeah, but I didn't remember him making, like, unnecessary, like, risks.
They weren't unnecessary, but he was far more willing to go out and, like, take the initiative on something that might be a little more risky.
Yeah.
And, like, that was something that it was told to us probably more than it was shown to us. But the first season was not particularly good on character growth like that.
Yeah. So then, like, Picard just full out says, Will, why the hell are you still here? And Riker's like, sir? And then Picard's like, listen, I know about the Melbourne, you should... And he's like, oh, no, I like, turned it down already, it's cool. Picard's like, you should, like, lead your own ship. Like, you're good. Like, you can do it. We believe in you. A++. And the Enterprise will go on without you, which somehow, like, that kind of makes it feel like it hurt.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, that work and everything you've put in here, oh, they'll be fine when you leave, don't worry. Which, like, on one hand, it's like a compliment of, like, you've set things up. So, like, it's going to be able to run in shape because you set it up like that. But it's also like, we don't need you. Fucking leave.
Mm-hmm. It also wasn't the point Riker was trying to make when he said, yeah, but the Melbourne isn't the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Riker was worried about the Enterprise. Like, oh, how will they function without me? It was more like, this is the fucking Enterprise. This is the flagship. Like...
Yeah. If you're on, like, the big one, like, why would you want to go to something like... If you're lucky enough to be in this position, why would you want to change that? Especially if you're happy in this position.
Yeah.
But then also, so then, like, Riker talks to Troy, and he's also like, what the hell am I still doing here? And then Troy actually, like, gives decent advice for once.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, like, if you're happy here, like, you want your own command, but, like, he's like, oh, something's, like, holding me back, and he says, maybe I'm just afraid of the big chair. I'm just like, is Riker in crisis? Is he okay? And yeah, it's Troy's just trying to be like, listen, you're older, you're more experienced, you're a little more seasoned. And he's like, seasoned? That's a horrible thing to say to a man. But Riker basically thinks he's, like, lost something, which I guess is, like, the gusto. But Troy's just like, here's the thing, like, you may have lost something, but, like, how much more have you gained? So, like, they think that's more important, but, like, are you happy on the Enterprise? And, like, what do you actually want? Mm-hmm. And which I think is, like, a really good sort of setup of all that.
Yeah. I think it's like he feels like he's lost some ambition, which, like, to this point in his life, that's just kind of been what his life has been about, is, like, being ambitious and moving on to the next thing and, like, climbing the ladder and stuff like that. But, like, I guess what they're setting up at this point is, like, maybe now that he's older and, like, has more experience and stuff, it's not necessarily about all those things anymore.
Yeah. Different priorities.
Yeah. And this kind of goes off into a thing where I feel like in general society, like, lack of ambition is seen as just so incredibly negative, or, like, certain things are interpreted as a lack of ambition when they're just like, no, I'm fine where I am,
Yeah, I think it's everybody's expected to, like, just keep going up the ladder until you hit the top, when, like, number one, that's not like a thing that's going to happen for everybody.
Yeah.
But also, like, what's wrong with, like, finding somewhere in the ladder that you're happy on? Like, why does it always have to go to the top?
Yeah. And, like, this has nothing to do with Riker, so this isn't an implication about him, but sometimes, like, people aren't, like, good at the job the next level up.
That's true. Yeah.
there's this whole, there's a specific name for it, but I forget what it's called. It's this, a something paradox. I forget what it's called, but essentially it means that, like, people who are, like, really good at their jobs, like, get promotions and stuff, and then they get good at that job, and then they get promoted, and then eventually everyone's promoted into a job they don't excel at. So at a certain point, everyone sucks at their job.
That's hilarious. I love it. I haven't actually heard that before.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why, hey, maybe it's okay if someone doesn't move up the ladder sometimes, and they're okay just being where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that you shouldn't have any ambition, but, like, sometimes I feel like we take it too far as a society. Anyway.
Yeah, calm down with your ambition, society. Okay, so then they kind of come up with, like, a Borg theory, which is that, like, the Borg, their systems are decentralized. I'm reading this right from, like, the notes that are right from the episode, the line. One theory is that their systems are decentralized with redundant power sources located throughout the ship. Borg tech has given each member of their society the ability to interface and function collectively, lightly constructed their ship with the same philosophy. So basically, I think Wes says that, like, you know, if you knock out one generator, and then, like, a different one takes over without interruption, and then I think Shelby says something of, like, the Borg ship would still be able to function even if it's at 78% was inoperable.
Yes.
Basically just means they have a fuck ton of backups of everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, like, Shelby starts to bring up, like, what if we do something with these phasers? And then Riker's like, hey, everybody, like, good night, goodbye.
Yeah.
And
well, this is
Shelby's-
after Geordi and Wesley say that they're, like, their
beat.
brains have turned to clay.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's, like, exhausted. And then Shelby's like, hey, but can I, like, stay and chat with Data? Because Data doesn't need to rest. And Riker's like, no, fuck off. Everybody to bed. Good night.
He's like, but you need to.
Yeah, he's like, you can't be fighting fatigue and the enemy at the same time. So then we learn that the USS Lalo? Oh, no. Oof. Meh. Another ship, it, like, disappeared. They sent a distress signal to a starbase, a report of an alien vessel shaped like a cube, and then there's been no contact since. So
I wonder
it'll take
who it is.
Yeah, it'll take 1 hour and 17 minutes at warp 9.
Also known as one scene.
Yeah, to get to where the ship disappeared, I guess. So Geordi has, like, a plan to, like, modulate the shield notations. I don't understand a lot of this shit.
Basically, the shields are an energy force that operates at a frequency, and he's going to keep changing that frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like, Picard is, like, pacing, and Worf is like, hey, unidentified vessel has just entered. Like, sensor rage, no response. Picard is like, let's intercept it. And then it's like, lol, they're gonna intercept the Enterprise instead. And then, it's so funny, because, like, Picard's, like, on screen, and then we see the Borg, and it's obviously the Borg, but then he's, like, magnifying. It's like, yeah, no shit, it's the Borg, you guys.
Okay.
But the music cues were so fucking good, so dramatic.
Let's
good.
give them a little bit of credit here. This was designed to be shown on a CRT television.
No, I'm not giving any credit.
Great.
So then, like, there's, like, very dramatic music, and Picard is being hailed by name. So then the Borg are like, Picard must come on the ship, or they will destroy the Enterprise. And Picard's like, yeah, he, like, threatens the Borg with, like, fake shit, because, like, I don't think they really have stuff, like, ready the way he thinks they do, or whatever.
No, they don't.
He's bluffing, basically.
Yeah.
Hey, we learned about that earlier in the episode.
Yeah. So, like, the Borg are trying to scan, and they're, like, with their tractor beam and shit, and then, like, the shield fails, and then, like, the weapons firing doesn't really do shit, and then, like, the Borg laser, like, fucking damages the hull and to engineering or whatever. So then they're like, what if, so Shelby's like, oh, Data, what if you, like, you know, pew pew shoot, like, the phaser, whatever, lasers at one spot, but, like, you know, sporadically with, like, no pattern, just, like, do it at random frequencies and, like, random settings, and, like, keep changing it, don't let them figure it out. And then he does, and then there's, like, boom, explosion. Not a big one, but, like, a little one. So then, like, when that hit, they were able to, like, distract long enough for, like, the tractor beam to like, release the Enterprise, and then the Enterprise, like, runs. They just bolt and they make a run for it. And then we learn that, like, 11 people have died, 8 unaccounted for in engineering, which is like, damn, stakes are high.
Yeah.
So then they get to the Paulson Nebula, and they're like, okay, now we're gonna fucking hide in here for a bit.
Yeah.
Which was, like, honestly the most beautiful distraction they could come up with, because it was so pretty, like the lights and stuff. The lighting of this nebula cloud was very pretty. So yeah, they're basically, like, it's, like, dense enough to, like, hide them from the Borg sensors, and, like, the logic is, like, if the Borg is looking for them, then everybody else will be fine or something. So then we get we bring back the AV Club. Just so we can watch a clip that I don't know how the Enterprise would have gotten this footage, but, you know, go off Enterprise, I guess, where they're showing the hit on the Borg vessel, and there's a 2% drop in the power system when it was hit. So, like, whoa. So they're talking about, like, oh, maybe, like, we do, like, a concentrated burst of power at, like, the same frequency distribution. I don't know. There's, like, a lot of shit. And then they're like, oh, what if we use the main deflector dish? But it's, like, designed to hold that much power. But if they do that, the Enterprise will explode. Shelby's like, what if we turn all the lasers onto the same frequency? And then, like, she's suggesting all this shit. And then she gives the best suggestion I've ever heard, which is, like, what if we separate the saucer section and assign the skeleton crew to create a diversion? And I was like, yeah, let's think about that, shall we? But that's, like, a really big risk, because then, like, she's like, well, because then there's, like, more than one target, and I'm like, I feel like that's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Because,
especially
like, then
there's, like, families and children in the saucer section.
Yeah, I was like, I get the idea of, like, needing to take more risk, but at the same time, I think Shelby's gone a little like, too risky, because she's not showing any, like, regard for the other people on the ship. I don't know, she's just, like, so focused on defeating the Borg that she's, like, seems like she's okay with, like, killing everybody to, like, accomplish this or something.
Yeah.
It just was, like, some very aggressive...
I feel like when they met up with the Admiral's ship, it would have made sense to get all those people off the Enterprise, since they knew they were going to be dealing with this.
Maybe they did that off screen.
Yeah, like, it's not... They didn't mention anything about it. It's just... That would have made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, Shelby's very single-minded, I agree.
So then Riker's like, listen, I hear you, but this seems like a really big risk, so, like, maybe no. And then she's like, well, I think the captain should decide. And he's like, okay, well, like, I'll tell the captain. And then the doors open 8 times. Like, we hear the doors close and open 8 times. Nice. It just was so many in, like, a short period of time that it was really distinct to me. And so then Riker goes into Picard's quarters, or his ready room, and Shelby's there, and he's like, well, look who the fuck we have here. And so Picard's like, so Shelby told me her idea, and, like, yeah, it's very risky, but maybe we keep it in the back pocket for later. And Riker's like, good talk, okay, bye. I was like, this is very messy. Shelby, you are being real messy in this situation. Yeah. So then Riker and Shelby get into the lift, and oh fuck. This conversation was fucking salty and a lot. So, okay, Riker goes, Commander, you and I need to have a conversation. And then Shelby says, you never ordered me not to discuss this with the captain. And then Riker goes, you disagree with me? Fine. You need to take it to the captain? Fine. Through me. You do an end round me again, I'll snap you back so hard you'll think you're a first-year cadet again. Oh, shit. And then Shelby's like, may I speak frankly, sir? And Riker's like, by all means. And then she goes, you're in my way. And Riker goes, really? How terrible for you. And Shelby goes, all you know is how to play it safe. I suppose that's why someone like you sits in the shadow of a great man for as long as you have, passing up one command after another. Proceed to deck 8. And then Riker goes, when it comes to this ship and this crew, you're damn right I play it safe. And then Shelby goes, if you can't make the big decisions, Commander, I suggest you make room for someone who can.
Oh.
And then she steps off. I'm like, wow. That was intense.
That was spicy.
Oh yeah, so then like Picard is like, I don't know why the Borg is after me. It's all really weird, and he's like walking around the ship.
Oh, because the Borg hail him by name.
Yeah, well, no, I know that, but like he's saying he doesn't understand why they called him by name.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like on a walk around the ship, and he comes across Gainan, and he's like, yep, the captain apparently like does tours of the ships before a big battle, and does like examples of like, I don't know, I think said something about the Roman Empire, and then like I want to say Waterloo.
That line was admittedly kind of dumb.
Yeah,
Something
that was
with Waterloo.
later.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so...
Well, because he said, because Guinan's like, that tradition is usually before a hopeless battle, isn't it? And he's like, not necessarily, because this person did it, and he won. And she's like, yeah, but that guy died. And he's like,
but they won.
But they
He's
won.
like, yeah, but like technically they won, so shut up.
And then, later on, he's talking about how, like, you know, this is like a big moment in history and stuff. And then he makes this reference to the Roman Empire, like when they...
Yeah, is this the end of civilization? Or like, did the Roman Empire know that was like the end of them when that thing attacked the thing? Whatever.
The Roman Empire was already two separate empires by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, plot twist. So, and then we learned... okay, did we know this, that the Borg destroyed Guinan's home?
Yeah.
We did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no memory. Oh my God.
In the episode where they're introduced, like, she's the one that has experience with them and says that they destroyed her home.
Okay, I have no recollection of that. Classic. And so Guinan's like, yeah, like, the people did prevail, though, because, yeah, like, their home was destroyed, but, like, the human spirit prevails. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Oh, yeah, then there's, like, an explosion because there's, like, what? What the? I wrote hat-seeking missiles. A quote, like a heat-seeking missile thing, because I guess like the Borg was like shooting in to like hit them still, but I guess shooting blind or whatever.
The depth charges.
Yeah, Riker says a bunch of stuff, but what it boils down to is basically they're like magnetic missiles.
Okay, so they are. Yeah, okay, so heat-seeking, that's not, like, completely off in a way, just, like, different.
Yeah.
I heard hat-seeking missiles. Oh, that's a vibe. So then, yeah, they're like, we need to, like, exit the nebula, so they, like, get out of there real quick. Shields fail, tractor beam. So then the Borg fucking peers on the bridge. Worf hits one, knocks him down. Another one shows up. And he tries to hit the second Borg. They're very creepy. They've already adapted to the frequency shit. A Borg shoves Riker and Worf, and then a third one appears and just like grabs Picard and just leaves. And then they can't get like a signal for Picard. Oh, and then we learn, gasp, 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 the Borg are on a direct course to Sector 001, the Terran system. And then Riker very dramatically goes, Earth.
Yeah.
To be fair, not everyone knows what the Terran system means.
Yeah, in case the audience
no, that's not a
doesn't
criticism.
know.
I just thought that was very dramatic, but
Yeah.
like in a good way. So then Picard is like led throughout the ship till he gets to the atrium. I don't know, the like big space. Yeah, the big space where like everybody is, and then the Borg share this charming information with us. So the Borg collectively goes, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, you lead the strongest ship of the Federation fleet. You speak for your people. And Picard's like, I have nothing to say to you, and I will resist you with my last ounce of strength. And then the Borg goes, strength is irrelevant. Resistance is futile. We wish to improve ourselves. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service ours. And then Picard's like, what the fuck did I write? Impossible? Oh my God, I have no idea. I'm gonna guess it says impossible. my culture is based on freedom and self-determination. And honestly, freedom is such a trigger word at this point. I can't. And then the Borg goes like, freedom is irrelevant. Self-determination is irrelevant. You must comply. And then Picard goes, we would rather die. And the Borg goes, death is irrelevant. Your archaic cultures are authority-driven to facilitate our introductions into your societies. It has been decided that a human voice will speak for us in all communications. You have been chosen to be that voice.
I love that Picard is given one-liners here, and the Borg just dismiss the one-liners. Like,
they're like, yeah, we don't care what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then we learn like the Borg is like full speed heading towards Earth, and the Enterprise does not have the power to like keep up with them the way they're doing now. So they have to figure something else out. And so Riker, initially Riker's like, me, Data, Worf, and Dr. C will go to rescue Picard. And Shelby, you'll be in charge. And then Troy's like, actually, Riker, you were left for a certain job, and like kind of in front of everyone. Like I almost felt bad for Riker because this was like very public. She's like, actually, Riker, it's inappropriate for you to go on this rescue mission. You need to stay here, and Shelby should go. And he's like, okay, Shelby will go.
Yeah. Because now
Riker's
now the tables have turned on him, because now that he's in charge, he's not allowed to go on the away missions.
As the turntables.
So Shelby leads the away team. So then they can only use their like phasers once or twice before the Borg can sense patterns. So like they arrive on the ship, and the Borg, like some of them like fully just ignore them. Because like there's one that fully just walks by them and like nothing.
They even say in the episode that like last time they ignored us because they don't see us as a threat, so they'll probably do the same this time around.
Yeah. So then they notice these like upside down flashing pyramids, which turn to be distribution nodes, in which they decide like, okay, if we like shoot these things, then like maybe it'll power down shit. Dr. C uses a like mosquito analogy of like,
yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah, but the analogy doesn't work because she's talking about a mosquito sting, and it's like, mosquitoes don't have stings.
Yeah. So then they are searching the ship, and then there's I have to note, they say there's 22 minutes until they lose the Borg, because it's important to know what the timeline is on this this episode.
And as we all know, this hour has 22 minutes, so there we are.
Yep. So then they find Picard's like scraped up uniform, and they start like taking out the distribution nodes. And then they are surrounded. The Borgs are coming on to them, but they like get to shoot a few times and knock them out. But then they start to adapt, and then and then like a bit farther down, we see the profile of Picard, and and then he turns to face us, and he's been Borged.
Yep.
He's been full out Borged. And they give him abs on his outfit, though, which I found very funny.
He's not the only one who has abs on his outfit, but it is definitely very weird that they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then like Worf rushes him to try to like, I don't know, get him or something, in which I called him in my notes the Borcard. But they are not successful. So then they like have to transport back to the bridge, and then it's just then they realize like it's like right down to it of like either they're at the moment right now because they're like they have the power to like shoot the Borg ship, and like kill them or whatever. Like they might be able to do it, but that would mean killing Picard. Or they could try another rescue mission with Picard, but like how successful would that be? Like when will they get a chance to like have the Borg in this?
Well, basically,
sort of
like
position?
the stuff they destroyed slowed them down enough that they could use their weapon.
Yeah.
So if
they can use the warp power.
Yeah. So if the Borg cube gets back up to warp power, they won't be able to use the weapon.
Yeah. So they either have to use it now, or like that's sort of it. This is their chance.
Yeah.
But then they're like, but then everybody else is like, well, maybe we should try to like get Picard, and Riker's like, ugh. But then they get hailed, and on the screen is fucking Borcard. And he goes, I am Locutus?
Locutus.
Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will serve us. And then we pause, and I was dying. And then Riker goes, Mr. Worf, fire. And then we cut to be continued. And
Yep.
he's not wrong. My life is forever changed.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And think about this. When this aired, people had to wait months and months and months to see what happened.
Yeah, I believe there were 4 months between episodes. I could be wrong. It could be 2. But I'm pretty sure it's 4. So the response to this episode was absolutely huge, because there was a big contention, especially at like conventions and whatnot, between fans of the original series and this. This was considered like the younger brother that hadn't quite made it, but it was beginning to climb in the ratings. It was clearly doing better than the original series had been by comparison of like where it started out, in that like it was actually climbing in ratings, and with the original series they didn't think it was. And after this one aired, all debate on whether it was like a true Star Trek sequel, whether it counted, was just fucking gone. Mm-hmm. This won them the approval of everyone, and everyone was fucking down for it so hard. The writers' room after this aired, because they were already well into writing the 4th season after this aired, but they gained a couple of new writers then, and the word around the table is that they were not as excited to be there, the new writers, as the people who were suddenly feeling really appreciated for everything they had done up until that point.
Aww.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like so excited to be part of it. So for the record, the background on this is a little interesting, because the episode was penned by Michael Piller, who was the showrunner. It did a round table, obviously. There were a lot of people involved in writing it, but
Jeff, before you get too deep into that, I know you probably are going to bring this up at some point, but I feel the need to bring it up now.
Okay.
Dory, there's a very important detail you need to know, is that at the end of season 3, Patrick Stewart's contract was up.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. So, like, the stakes were fucking real.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They could still be real.
This is like season 6, I think, or season 7 of the original CSI, where, like, one of the characters was left in like a life or death situation, and they didn't have like a contract for the next season. And that whole summer I thought I was gonna fucking lose my mind, because it's like, is Sarah Seidel dead or is she alive? We won't know. And she lived, thank God. But yeah, man, that I assume that was like how like the same.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's
important, just not knowing.
What's important to remember about this is this was 1990. That kind of thing wasn't done. You didn't just write off a main cast member at the end of your series as a bait. So, like, this was a real big thing for the time. This was, like, on the level in terms of popularity as, like, Who Shot JR. So, like, this got a lot of really, really intense attention directed at the show.
And wasn't it Patrick Stewart himself who wasn't really interested in continuing?
So, I mean, do you want me to spoil whether or not he continues or not?
No.
I mean, I think I can figure out whether or not he continues.
Well, I
well,
mean,
you don't know in what form.
Yeah.
Or if, like...
But I know that he comes back. I know that he's in, like, more of the show, at the very least.
Yeah. Well, we won't spoil when that happens.
Yes.
If that happens. Yeah.
So the behind the scenes part about this is interesting, because Michael Piller penning the episode actually had something similar going on in his life too, because he was contracted on TNG for only 1 season to be the showrunner for the 3rd season, and he had kind of written the episode with him in place of Riker to an extent, deciding whether or not he was going to move on or whether he should stay here, whether staying here would be like a big career boost or not. Because, I mean, this episode was the one that proved to the world that TNG was fucking worth it finally. But as he was working on the third season, I mean, it seemed like he could have gone and done something more. What he said was that his the conversation with Troy about Riker's career options were kind of an allegory to how he was feeling about it at the time. It's, why am I still here? Do I need to be still here? Should I go off and do something more? Mm-hmm. And truth be told, when he was writing the main idea for this episode, and even into filming it, they didn't have a resolution planned. So they had no idea what was going to be part 2. There wasn't even an outline.
Essentially, they're setting up for Riker to take over.
Yes. And at the end, the whole episode is really Riker's story. Like, yes, it's a Picard cliffhanger, but the story is about Riker's character and what he's doing now, where he's going to go. And they give him this Oedipus complex solution, which is, you have to kill your father, Picard, and marry your mother, the ship.
Okay, I was wondering where you're going with that. I'm like, I don't know if this applies. I don't know if Oedipus complex applies.
Well, we do know that Picard has referred to the Enterprise as a lady. Mm-hmm. And we have called an episode calling Picard Riker's daddy. Yeah. So
that's true.
I guess this is apt.
Oh, fun fact: the reason that the Doctor goes down with them to the Borg cube on that last appearance is because Gates McFadden asked Michael Piller if she could have a scene where she's firing a phaser, and he was just like, "Yeah, sure." And so they just let him beam down with them.
Nice. That cliffhanger, even though I know what happens, it still gets me. I still love it. Especially like the cut to black and dramatic music. It's so good.
So while they were filming that, specifically while they were filming Patrick Stewart approaching the camera, while he's towering over it, and because it's that low angle, apparently the way that he first delivered the line, which had everyone fucking floored, was he said, "I am Locutus of Borg. Would you be interested in buying a Pontiac?"
Oh my god. That's so good.
That feels like the equivalent today would be like, "We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty."
Yeah.
Are the Borg just telemarketers? Oh god.
Oh god. No, they're the ultimate colonialists.
Resistance is futile.
Is that I know that line. Is that specifically from this?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It actually becomes a bit of a catchphrase for them. I won't spoil what happens with them in TNG, but the Borg are used to more effect in a couple of shows forward in Star Trek Voyager, which takes place in the part of space where the Borg actually come from. And they're kind of not done very well because the problem with this is actually a problem that the writers had in bringing them back in TNG too, but the problem with a race that is so fucking powerful that you don't have a hope in hell of defeating them is you have to keep thinking of plausible ways to defeat them. Yeah. And that doesn't work out so well after you do it enough times. But the resistance is futile line and the "we will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own" line is it becomes their catchphrase to the point where they just end up, every time that they show up, they hail them and just say it immediately. And it's like, guys,
well,
don't.
That's like their automated email, their automated voice
essentially,
message.
Yeah.
Or they're out of office.
Yeah.
But the idea of making them want to actually take biological units was novel, because they were like, well, how are we treating this species? We're making them a little bit less alien because they needed to give them kind of a queen bee solution, which ends up being Locutus. And they kind of turn them a bit into zombies by doing this, but in a way that still, I think, works well with the original idea of them having like a hive mind that's always thinking of its own betterment. And actually, it's weird because the previous episode was about humanity humanity transcending above our own capabilities, and like Star Trek has always been very positive towards transhumanism, and the Borg really are the ultimate cautionary tale in transhumanism, to the point where like what happens when you have transcended your own abilities and your own self so much that you lose who you are. Because that's what the Borg have done. They have abandoned a part of what made them what they were in the past in order to transcend it and achieve some level of higher being and perfection.
Because what the Borg do, it comes to be known as assimilation. What they do is they basically take people and change them into Borgs. So you just basically become this like mindless techno zombie.
I'm just wondering, like, do we ever learn how they like originated?
You get clues on it, but
Yeah.
you don't get a very specific. I can't go into too much detail about it because there's some spoilers about other storylines around the Borg that you may never get to, but I can tell them to you later on, like when we're not seeing them anymore in TNG. But essentially, they are supposed to be human-like, and they added technological cybernetic enhancements to themselves to the point where they eventually lost that. And that's all the detail that you ever actually get on it. When it's asked and when it's told, it's extremely cryptic. The Borg are like that.
Because I just find it interesting of like why they would like add the tech stuff to themselves, or like what would they like what was the aim there? Like was
You
it
never
for
find
like
out about
selfish
that.
reasons? Is it for like they needed some other kind of assistance? I just find it really interesting.
Yeah. It's also worth considering that in the 1990s, there was a huge tech boom that was going on. It would actually get bigger than it had at the point that they were filming this episode, but there were a lot of thoughts about what cybernetic improvement can do to people, how it could improve our physical forms, that we'd be able to, have strength unmatched to what we have now. That it could give us brain improvements even in how fast we think and how we store information. But there was also a lot less understood about how human beings could potentially interface with technology at that point too. It was very much in the realm of science fiction, and it was popular in science fiction at the time. And it goes with the idea of transhumanism, which is a genuine philosophy that's still discussed nowadays, of at what point do we stop improving ourselves by just the limited forms that we have and start adding to ourselves instead?
Yeah, and it's like, at what point do we lose our humanity? And there's also like, that fear of like, they're gonna put microchips in our brains and make us all zombies, basically.
Yep.
Which just seems like, ever since computers were a thing, just seems like a universal fear at all times.
Yeah. I think what's frustrating about that is that some parts of transhumanism I think are super cool. And, obviously there's concerns about it, but something like, having your identification and your, identification and like bank account info and whatnot accessible at all times, just embedded in your hand, is, I think it's a really neat idea. There's terrible ways to abuse it, unfortunately, just as there is with anything that we develop. But then I start to think about the problems that I have with all of my current stuff with, this type of ID isn't valid. This government ID that you have isn't valid and doesn't count, so we're not going to accept it.
Yeah.
Or my bank account, my bank card tap just not working, and I'm just thinking like, man, if I had a tap in my hand, how often would it just break and I'd have to get a whole new surgery? That would suck.
Yeah, exactly. It's like in Spaceballs. It's like, fuck, even in the future, nothing works.
Yes.
Which is true. I think that's like,
Yes.
yeah, that's a very interesting topic, and I do really want to get into that. However, I feel like we haven't really gotten enough of Dory's thoughts on the episode itself.
Fair.
So just wondering, like, what your kind of general impressions are of the episode.
I really liked it. I mean, it definitely from the start had a very different vibe. You know what it made me think of? It had the same vibe as Conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, right from the start, you know, like, this is different. Mm-hmm. Like, there is some kind of like...
The pacing is
going down.
Something's happened. Yeah, shit is happening. And I think it's interesting that they brought Shelby in. She's an interesting character because on one hand I'm like, you bitch, but at the other hand I'm like, I can't help but like admire her a little bit.
Yeah,
like
she's
she's
a very
an interesting
good character.
Yeah, because like she doesn't have bad intentions per se.
No, it's
just
her
like it seems like she just like she knows what she wants, and she's a youth. And it's not like, oh, she's making a play for Riker's job. It's that she thought he was leaving.
Yeah.
But I guess like everybody was talking this except Riker, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if they keep her on for like the next episode or if they bring her back at any point. But like, I don't know. And I'm also really happy they didn't make her a love interest.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
that they just kind of made her like, because at first I was like, when they're like, oh, Riker, can you bring her to her quarters? I was like, oh boy. Oh boy. But then it wasn't. I was very happy that it did not go there. So yeah, I found her to be really interesting. I like that we got to revisit the Borg again. So like, yay to continuity and follow through. And I kind of like that, like we know that other people have now like been involved in the like research and development of like shit about the Borg, even though like they're not very far into it as much as they'd like to be. But it is nice, like cool to know that like there has been repercussions of like, because I guess the Enterprise were the first ones to like meet the Borg, and then they obviously told people, and then they've like done something about it. Like it's not just been like, oh, the Enterprise is coming to the Borg again, and nobody else knows about this, and so that's interesting.
Okay, to be fair, they do retcon all of that in later Star Trek series in the stupidest of ways, because when Star Trek was going downhill in the ratings, it was like desperate to recapture even like a fragment of what it had once been when it was at its heights with TNG. And holy shit, they do a fucking episode about these characters that were apparently tracking the Borg like 10 years before you meet them in TNG, and it's like, well, wait a minute, how does everyone... Why is everyone so surprised then? It's dumb.
Then those people suck. Why didn't they tell anybody about the Borg?
And they're just like, oh, well, it was only rumors. And it's like, no, that's stupid. And then they do an episode in the prequel series, Enterprise, where they accidentally meet the Borg. And it's like, guys, just stop.
Yeah.
Just fucking stop.
Stop trying to make Borg work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, it was the success of this episode that really set all of that in motion, because I mean they're not going back and referencing Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Even though I think they should, because that was cool as fuck.
Yeah.
They do, just not in those series.
Series.
They
There should be a drinking game. Every time Jeff says series, someone takes a drink.
They reference it 1 or 2 times in Lower Decks so far, which is kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but Lower Decks is kind of the bastion of Trek trivia.
I think like I quite enjoyed this episode. I like how there isn't like a dull nonsense moment. Like we just like every single scene is like, we need this to go to the next.
Yes.
And which is like how it
tight.
should be.
Yeah, everything is moving the story forward.
Toy.
Yeah, and nothing is like, I just like how there's like repercussions for everything. And I like it. Yeah, I like this episode a lot. And I think just like right from the start, I knew this was going to feel different. Because like, I think also the last few episodes we've watched have been kind of duds.
Yeah.
Just been like kind of boring or whatever. And this one just like came in like right at the start. Like, hey, we are here to have a good time and punch you in the face with how good of a time this is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that they did a good job with like, because even the reveal of Picard standing sideways, I was like, oh no, what's happening? What's happening? And then he turned and I was like, oh my, I wrote in my notes literally, oh my God.
Yeah. It was a very good reveal.
Like, it was a good reveal of Borgard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that, he, it was also like kind of a not a misdirect, but like when they find his uniform, and it's like, oh God, what did they do to him? And then it's like, yep, he's not, because like I initially thought, oh, maybe they removed it to like, because it had the,
oh no, Picard's nude.
Communicator?
No, yeah, the kid, the communicator on it, so they use it as like a distraction, or like they put it over there so they'll follow it to his shirt. And then they find it. It's like, nope. But it's like, no, they did that, but they also took it off him so they could put different clothes on him.
Yeah.
I really loved them opening that drawer to find the uniform, because it was actually a callback to the first time that they met the Borg, and they opened a drawer to find, a child that's been Borgified.
Oh yeah, babies.
Oh
yeah,
I didn't remember that.
And the implication in that episode was that, Borg children are grown, and then they have these things added to them, which they abandon pretty quickly. But in this episode, it's basically wiping itself clean of that idea by using the exact same visual cue of you open this drawer and it reveals how are Borg made, and bam, you've got Picard.
In some fairness, like, I know that was a retcon, but in that episode, they're only theorizing. So
That's true.
They're only assuming that Borg are born and then, like, the stuff is added. Those could have been babies that they just assimilated and are incubating or whatever.
That's true. Yep, good point. Dory, what did you think of the soundtrack for this episode? It was pretty intense, wasn't it?
Oh, it slapped.
Yeah.
I only noticed the part where, like, I think it was when they took Picard. I wrote a note.
Oh, yeah.
I actually wrote in my notes about the music.
Oh, amazing. That's different.
Where was it? Yeah, I'd never write about music. I have it somewhere. I did write about the music, but at what part did I write up? I have so many notes.
It might have been towards the end with that the real intense thing where they're on the ship and destroying the distribution nodes, because that's where stuff's really ramping up.
No, it was like right before a commercial break or something.
Oh, okay.
What's when the Borg when they're hailed by name, and it's like they go on screen and then magnify, and then it's the Borg, and then the music is like it's the Borg.
Yes.
That's what I noted about the dramatic music. Oh, and then there's like a part where like you hear almost like a chorus or something. Yeah,
yes.
Very dramatic music.
Oh, yes. So the composer for this episode, Ron Jones, he's been connected with the series since the beginning of it, and you'll probably have noticed while the episode was playing, you'll get lots of intense musical moments like that where the music really stands out, and it manages to not be cheesy because the episode is extremely well cut and the dialogue is really sharp, and it just the way that it's directed all comes together really well. But sadly, his tenure with Star Trek would not last. He ended up getting let go at the end of the next season, and Rick Berman cited the reason as the music that you write for our show is too noticeable. Yeah. And I'm just like,
Oh, wow.
Rick, fuck you. Because this shit is fire.
Yeah. It sucks so hard. I want to get back to your point about Shelby, and that I also really like her character. And I like it, and it's like you said, she doesn't have bad intentions. She's just like too eager, too like
She's ambitious.
Yeah, she's ambitious, and when you're younger, like you're too eager to like prove yourself, and I think she just
I can't relate. I've never tried to prove myself ever.
Well, I think it's like she's so convinced that she's right, and it's like, and yes, she knows a lot and she's right about a lot of things, but yeah, I feel like she's very single-minded and
headstrong.
Yeah, headstrong, and doesn't seem to have too much regard for those around her, which is like, you need to, you do need to,
You need to be able to have a rapport with the people you work with.
Yeah.
You can have to be best friends, but you have to have some kind of respect. And the fact that she goes around Riker and like constantly, even though he's her superior in this situation, she's constantly going around him.
Yeah.
She's like arguing with him, and like.
Yeah. Like that whole thing of like going down early, like there was no reason she couldn't have like called Riker and said, "Hey, there's a storm moving in, we should go down now."
Yep.
You know, or whatever. But she just goes down there by herself.
But with Data.
Oh yeah, with Data.
But yeah, it's just like it's just like kind of a shady move.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And I liked that they had a female character that was like that. Like that the episode didn't treat her like she was a bitch or whatever. They treated her like they would have, I feel, they treated her like they would have treated a male character that had the same, like, that did the same things. Where it's like, dude, you're playing fast and loose and you gotta calm it down, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so I really like that. Yeah, I feel like she's a strong character. And to go back to the sort of transhumanism thing we were talking about, because I did want to get into that. I'm pro body modification, which includes like potential like cybernetic stuff and all that things. I think if someone wants to alter themselves to a point where you could arguably say they're not really human anymore, is like, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that, because that's what they want to do. That's the, like, if they're fine with it, then I think that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if someone wants to basically be like, well, I'm fine, you know, not being technically human anymore, then it's like, okay, go at it.
Yeah. I think that with cybernetics specifically, like our idea of what they can be has obviously changed a lot over the last 30, 40 years since they've been seriously considered within science fiction. Mm-hmm. And I've always really enjoyed science fiction that is about transhumanist ideas, specifically cybernetic enhancement, or what do you call it? Any kind of digital enhancement of a human's abilities. But the thing that Star Trek does that I really like about it is that it doesn't just give us these ideas where we're fighting over like what's human about them, what isn't human about them. It takes those enhancements to logical conclusions, and it says, look, here's one thing that could happen with this, and here's what can be dangerous about it. Because Star Trek is, in of itself, definitely less pro-technology than a science fiction show about technology usually is, which is very funny. It's more often than not writing cautionary tales about technology.
Well, I feel like, interestingly enough, science fiction in general is kind of like that, where it is true. More about a cautionary tale about the future and about technology. Yeah.
Science fiction is about an allegory to, well, not always, but usually, often, it is about an allegory to what's going on in our current world. Mm-hmm. And while cybernetic enhancement wasn't anywhere near the level that they thought it could be, or isn't anywhere near the level they thought it could be now, that it was when they were theorizing this stuff back in the 1980s, I still think it's a neat thing to look at, because we could reach that point. Mm-hmm. Like, there are obviously insurmountable... maybe insurmountable isn't the word, but there are very difficult to cross barriers that we need to find ways around or find ways to bridge before we could get to anything even close to this level, even to the level of something like Deus Ex, where we just have like enhanced arms and legs and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But the logical conclusions that TNG is bringing up here, I quite like, because TNG definitely has spent a good deal of time questioning what it is to be a human being.
Definitely.
And while this episode isn't necessarily about that, it is framed around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Deus Ex is a much more realistic depiction of what would happen, which is that you end up with sort of like this, basically a reflection of like what's happening now, where you have this class system.
Yeah, class divide.
Yeah, a class divide and discrimination against those who do have enhancements. Or I could see it going the opposite way, where it's like discrimination of like against people who don't have enhancements. I think
what
it's
Gattaca does.
Yeah, exactly like Gattaca. But that was like digital, or not digital, genetic engineering.
Yes.
Which is slightly different.
Yeah, but it is still about transhumanism.
Yeah. And, you have like, there's a class divide, and then even amongst people who do have enhancements, it's like, if you can't afford the anti-rejection drugs, it's like you're kind of fucked, and, all that stuff. I don't necessarily even think the Borg are necessarily like a specific allegory for anything. Like, to me, the Borg kind of feel like just a generic embodiment of just the fear of technology.
That could be. I think I might have gone into this in the in Q Who when we talked about that last season. And there was definitely an idea that was floated around a lot while they were writing it about specifically the loss of humanity by embracing this sort of technological future. But you're right. It definitely crosses much more into a fear of technology than it does specifically transhumanism. But it is using transhumanism as a vessel for it. And transhumanism is something that, God, I've said that word a lot today. It's something that Gene Roddenberry was actually interested in.
Yeah.
Not that he was writing the episode or anything.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by it. I'm, in general, pretty pro transhumanism when it comes to, like, in terms of, like, modifying yourself. Like I said, in general, body modification, I'm pro body modification. And I think, like, cybernetic and digital stuff is, like, just kind of the next step. And, like, that's fine by me. I do, however, don't ignore or don't dismiss the potential issues with that, where, it just further makes a deeper class divide, in that, like, if you can't afford to get these enhancements or whatever and get these advantages, then, like, you're kind of even further back from, making your way in the world and having a decent life and all that stuff. But yeah, in the general concept of, like, is it right to, like, cut off your arm and put a robot arm? And I'm like, yeah, if you have informed consent, if you're aware of all the pros and cons, and you're like, yeah, give me the fucking robot arm, then whatever. Get the robot arm.
All I'm saying is I want to lift a car. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been in the camp, if you're doing something that all the, like, pros, cons, all the shit that goes with it, if you know what it is and you're still good with it, then, like, party, do it.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's not hurting anybody else and this is something that exclusively affects you, then, like, there shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
That being said, while they were making this episode, they had nothing along the lines of the amount of technology that they were depicting on screen.
Yeah.
And the little light on the side of Picard's head during his scenes as Locutus is actually just a laser pointer toy from Michael Westmore's son.
Oh yeah, I figured as much. It kind of looks like a laser
good.
pointer. Yeah.
I thought it looked good. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it works great.
Yeah. I think everyone's, like, accidentally shone a laser pointer into their eye, or had someone shine it accidentally into their eye. And the beam looks like Exactly, like a laser pointer beam.
Yes.
Like, it has that certain, like, I don't know, like, grittiness to it. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it looks the same.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's because, oddly enough, it's because the lenses that they put on laser pointers are so cheap because they're just made of plastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it's gritty like that, because plastic can't really make the light look as clear as it otherwise would be. It's such a weird reason for it, because you'd think that it has to do with the intensity of the light.
No, it's just the smoothness of the lens, I guess.
Yep.
Interesting.
Imperfections in plastic.
All right, so with that, let's get on to favorite moments from the episode.
Okay, I got a few. All right. I like when Picard says that he already has a hell of a first officer. So when Riker and Geordi go down to the planet and they find Data and Shelby already down there, when Riker goes and pulls Shelby off to the side to talk to her, Geordi goes over to Data because somebody says like early bird catches the worm or whatever.
Yeah, Shelby said that.
And then Data goes, early bird? I believe Captain Shelby erred. There is no evidence of quifonal or what is it? Oh, A. Oh, that's an A. Oh my god. Oh god.
Basically, he says the science terms for worms and birds.
Of avifaunal or crawling vermicular life forms on Juret 4. And then Geordi goes, that's not what she meant, Data, but you're right, she erred. Erred. Whatever. I like that line. You guys, you'll know it in the episode when you hear it. I really liked Riker's discretion with Troy over why he's still on the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. And I like that he says, maybe I'm just afraid of the big chair. I really liked his conversation with Shelby, even though it was just like the shadiest, messiest conversation. I enjoyed that a lot.
That's why it's so good, though.
And I will say I was really surprised, like the twist that Picard was a Borg, was Borged. So that was a big surprise, and I find I don't get like surprised a lot. Mm-hmm. And that was a good twist for me. I enjoyed that. I did not see that coming.
You were right about someone getting kidnapped.
Yeah, and it was technological based.
Yeah.
Or like getting information based.
I forgot to mention this earlier, but the original like writing story outline of the episode actually involved Data and Picard both being kidnapped, and then
I'm sorry. Do I write this series?
I know.
Do I write this show? Did I retroactively write this show?
You've written all the first drafts.
Yes. Yeah. Somehow.
And then everyone took your first drafts and were like, "No, this is crap," and they wrote something else.
Wild. Yeah, those are all my favorite moments.
Sweet.
Nice.
I have a lot of the same ones that you do. One moment. So basically, I second all those moments. Those are also all my favorites. But one moment I'm surprised you didn't bring up is when Geordi Indiana Jones like underneath
oh my god, I
door.
forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they're evacuating engineering,
god.
And then the door comes down to seal it off, and Geordi has to like fucking do a little somersault to get under it, which does not make sense, but I'll forgive it.
Yeah, he's like, everybody come on, run, get out, and then he's like, oh, gotta make my roll for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Roll for initiative.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty great.
Also, the fucking cliffhanger is so good.
Yes.
Still gets me to this day.
Cliffhanger also gets me. You know when you feel like your blood rise a little bit to your face, and you're just because like out of excitement. Mm-hmm. I get that with this cliffhanger. Still to this day, after first seeing it when I was a child.
Yeah, it makes me giddy.
Yes, that's a very good term for it. So I also really like the because this is the first time that we're really hearing the Borg's voice as we're going to hear it from now on, because it sounded a little different the first time that we hear it in Q Who. But this time they really nailed that sound effect, and like hearing them do it for the first time, I forgot how chilling it sounds when it's not some cheesy shit on Voyager. I thought they did a real good job with that.
Yeah.
But also, I like the amount of throwbacks that they did to the first time that we saw the Borg. So like when they're pulling out the what do you call it, the drawer to find Picard's uniform, or at the beginning of the episode when they're studying a planet that seems to have been scooped out of nowhere and just destroyed. Those are all throwbacks to the first times that we hear about and see them. And
Yeah.
I never noticed that before until watching it this time, the amount of like self-references that they're making for people who might only be familiar with like bits and pieces of what had happened before, or maybe even for people who were more familiar with it and they were just like, oh, I remember that, I know what's coming.
After you, because I didn't make the connection with the drawer thing, so
Oh, yeah.
that is cool. However, why do they have drawers?
Because the Borg are very organized.
Why did they just toss his uniform and thing in a random drawer?
Sentimental value, you know how it is.
Yeah, I suppose. In a drawer with like a grate, so things can fall very easily through it.
Yeah, everything has a grate on the Borg ship.
Yeah.
But other than that, what really fucking gets me is every time that the soundtrack starts ramping up. Holy shit, the soundtrack in this episode is absolutely bonkers. It is great for TNG. It is absolutely standout. The way that it uses synthesizers is fantastic, and it's just this is like movie quality level to an extent. And they really went all out with it.
Yeah, I'm so mad that they fired that composer. Like, it's
me too.
It's the one, like, as the because the show improves so vastly, and like that's the one thing that they had going for them before that they didn't keep, which is unfortunate.
Yes. Yeah.
I sort of get wanting the music to be more of like just an accompaniment rather than like standing out too much, but I still think it's a bad decision.
The fact that he was there as the composer of the episode that put them on the map really should tell them that maybe if they were thinking of toning down the music, it's not what people wanted.
Yeah. I mean, the show is still good despite that, but like, imagine how much better it could have been. So that brings us to predictions for the next episode, which is actually gonna be much easier because the next episode is season 4. It's the first episode of season 4 and part 2 of the season finale. So basically, what do you think is going to happen in part 2?
I think that they are going to fire at the Borgs, but I don't think it'll blow it up. I think it'll just damage the ship. But they'll be able to get away. Past that, I don't know. Is there like a description for this episode or no?
No, it's just the aftermath of what happens.
Just to recoup, or just to recap, rather, what's actually happening. The ship is heading towards Earth. The Federation is attempting to put together an armada to stop them along the way.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because it was kind of mentioned a little bit in passing during much more intense moments.
Yes.
So they fire at the ship. The ship is on his way to Earth, and Picard is a Borg. So if you don't think they'll destroy the ship, then do you think the ship will make it to Earth?
I think they'll get very close to Earth, but I don't think they'll actually get to Earth. I think the moon will stop them. They'll blow up the moon. No, I'm kidding. They don't blow up the moon. No, the moon's fine.
Do you think they'll be able to save Picard?
Yes. The power of friendship.
In the next episode, or do you think it'll be like a continuing thing for a bit?
I think that maybe they'll be able to get Picard back. Okay. Maybe. Okay, I have an idea. So maybe, they shoot at the ship. It's just damaged. It's not gonna explode. It's fine. So then the Borgs the Borg. I remembered. It's plural. It's already plural. So the Borg keep heading towards Earth, and they using Picard's knowledge of some shit. They try to overtake or like invade one of the other Federation ships, but somebody on there like maybe knows Picard, and maybe like they just their thing is like they try to like incapacitate him to get him away, and I don't think he'll turn back like right away, because I think they'd probably have to send him to a specialist or something to like get the tech stuff removed. But I do think the Borg will probably like try to go for Earth, but another like maybe like multiple ships will go there, and then maybe the Borg tries to infiltrate all these individual ships, because they think they can take all these ships and like just to like get them out of the way so they could go towards Earth. But maybe because of like the damage that the Enterprise does cause the ship, they're able to tell the other ships this is what we need to do. We know that the Borg doesn't like die completely, so like they'll still have to get away. But maybe like once somebody captures Picard, they're like, oh, let's like make a run for it, because like I don't think we can like get past here, especially since our like liaison is like no longer an option. Yeah, so I think they're still going to make a go for it, but I don't think they're going to be successful. I think they're going to get real close.
Okay. Cool.
Is that enough for a prediction?
Yes, I think so. So our next episode will actually be the season 3 recap. Whoa. Which is so exciting that we're finished season 3 now. So yeah, join us for that. And then after that, watch season 4 to see if Dory's prediction is right. And join us for Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.